Okay, so I believe that's off and running. So you don't have to do anything on your end, Emma. StreamYard's going to record your audio for me, and then I'll just
Cool.
capture at the end. So when we get done with the episode, just kind of hang tight.
Mhm.
I only say that because I had one guest like literally leave.
Bye.
So just like hang tight because it takes like a minute or so for your file to upload, and then you'll be good to
Sure.
go. But that's the only thing really. So
They were
do you have
like,
any
"I
questions?
am ready to go."
I know I was like wrapping up the episode, and they just like left, and I'm like, all right, cool. Um, so do you have any questions or anything? Or are you good?
No, I think I'm good. I did listen to a few episodes, so I have a
Oh, cool.
pretty good idea.
Cool. That's sweet. Thank you so much for that.
Of
All right.
course.
Well, we'll have a good time. We'll just kind of chat about these voice actors, and I'm sure it'll be a blast. So just give me like 5 or 10 seconds of silence here in the
Sure.
beginning so I can take out the background noise, and then I'll come in with the intro, and we'll get going with the episode. Okay.
Cool.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Two Peas on a Podcast, the main show here. I am so thrilled that you tuned in again this week. And I am also equally thrilled because I have a first time guest on the program. The year of first time guests continue here in 2023. And I know her from Next Best Picture, which is where I've gotten to know a lot of people over the last couple of years. I love hearing her commentary on that show when she pops up with Matt and the guys over there. But say hello to Emma. She's doing a lot of other things too. I might let her tell you a little bit about it, but she's a first time guest here on the piece. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm doing so great. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Absolutely. So you're out in Palm Springs, California, which I'm a bit envious of because I love Cali. Every time I go there, I'm like, why am I leaving? I just should just stay here. Um, but you're in Palm Springs. You're writing for the Desert Sun right now, right?
Yes, that's my full-time job. I do entertainment reporting as well as health reporting, and I mean, this year has just been such a blessing in terms of being able to cover the film festival in Palm Springs. I'm just about to embark on 3 weekends of festival coverage. So I
Ooh,
have 2 weekends of Coachella and a weekend of Stagecoach. So I will be very tired. I'm glad you're having me before all of that begins.
yeah, yeah. I got in at the right time. Well, I started
Exactly.
following you on YouTube as well, and I know I saw some of your interviews you did over there. You do a
Yeah.
really good job. You just have this just inherent like quality. I feel like people just are. You're just easy to talk to. I feel like. I guess I'm going to
Oh,
find out
thank
tonight,
you. Yes,
but I get the impression.
hopefully we can keep the trend alive. Yeah, that was some few things that I was able to do at the film festival, and I mean, that was just obviously a huge dream come true, and
Oh
I'm
God, yeah.
still trying to pinch myself over it. I do not want to wake up if it is a dream, but I'm happy to live in the dream for now.
Yeah, you had, you interviewed Colin Farrell out there, right? And Stephanie
Yes.
Shue,
Yeah, we had
and
Colin and Stephanie, Austin Butler, and Buzz Luhrmann came through. Pretty much all of
oh,
the
man.
Best Actor nominees, except for Paul Mescal, was there,
Oh, yeah,
and
you did Brendan Fraser as well, I remember that too, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it
Wow.
was just such a awesome time.
No, that's great. Well, I'm gonna put all your information down below, and since you've never been on the show before, people listening, please click on all the links down there and visit Emma online, follow her on Twitter and on YouTube, and check out all her interviews. She is a great person to watch and listen to over there. And on
Thank
Next Best
you.
Picture as well, I really enjoy when you show up there also.
Thank you. I really
So
appreciate all of that.
absolutely, and it's really exciting to get you on here tonight. Now, mutual friend of ours, I think Nicole. You know Nicole Ackman, right?
I
You're
do,
familiar with her.
yes. She's wonderful.
Oh, she's the best. So I had her on the show a few months ago, and we were kind of toying around with ideas, and I was pitching ideas, and her and I were kind of talking off camera,
Mhm.
and I came up with one that we almost landed on tonight for female voices, and she kind of gave me the idea, and her and I were talking a little bit about different stuff that we could do. And so I put that on my to-do list, and I sent that to-do list to you, which I do with a lot of my guests. And I said, "Okay, Emma, what do you want to talk about?" And we were going to do female voices, but then because in my mind that's singers, female singers. And so you were like, "Well, I don't know." And we kind of danced around it a little bit, and we landed on this topic, which is vastly different than that, but also
Very.
still equally kind of interesting. What are we counting down tonight, Emma? Why don't you tell the folks?
Tonight, we are counting down our top 5 voice acting performances, which when I read female voices, I was like, I would love to talk about women talking in films. That sounds
Absolutely.
great.
Absolutely. And we should do it was Women's History Month last month too. So
There we go.
we're recording this in April. I missed it. I need to plan
Just by a few
something.
days.
I know. I think next March though, I think I'm going to do like an all women centric month on the
I love
podcast where
that.
it's just like all women related topics cuz I've done them like, spaced throughout or just
Yeah.
randomly. But I think that would be cool to have kind of a theme centered around that and have like a different woman as the guest each week, and I think I might call on you to make that happen before you start getting all your
I'm all
interviews
for
again
it. Yeah, I
next
was about to say before Coachella starts again. I'm all
right,
for it.
like
I love that.
right after award season before Coachella, that window.
Yes, the
Yeah,
window
for
when
sure.
I'm kind of sleeping.
Exactly. So, when you were coming up with your list, now I don't like to give any topics or I'm sorry, any picks away up top here. But when you were coming up with this list for voice actor, which by the way we're doing for movies, right? We didn't branch out to TV. There's a
Yes.
lot of ones that maybe we'll mention tonight that, pop up here and there on television, but we're sticking purely to film. So when you were coming up with your list, Emma, was this easy for you? Because I kind of started drilling down my list a little bit today when I got off work, and I felt like narrowing it down was really the hard part. What about for you?
I would have to agree just because, I mean, I definitely looked at animated films quite a bit for this. I do have one pick that is not an animated film that I will not
Mm,
spoil for right now. But it definitely was like, all right, which animated films do I love? I'll start there, and then I'll really get into, do I love the voice performance that goes in there? And I realized that I really do love a lot of voice performances, and the reason why characters are so iconic or so memorable, it's because of the people behind those voices, which also makes me really happy that we're highlighting voice acting because for example, would love to see a voice acting category at the Oscars
oh yeah.
and just in
Hmm.
general in a lot of award shows, just because I don't think that they get their flowers as much as they should. So it's kind of cool that we get to highlight a few of these different performances tonight.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. When I was kind of narrowing down this list and what ultimately ended up being my top five is I was thinking to myself, there's like one exception really, which is going to be my number five. That's pretty recent, but generally speaking, a lot of like voice acting performances, it could very easily be considered like, oh, well, they phoned it in just to get a paycheck, or like, the studio just used this actor's name to draw people in, and there's not really a lot of emotionality behind it. But in these cases, and I'm going to point out, not only is that emotionality and like almost like you can see visually what the actor is doing behind the scenes, if you will,
Mhm.
but like it's carried on too, like almost a legacy for some of these characters that I'm going to mention tonight. I don't want to give any away, but you mentioned animation. I mean, you said you had what, one that was not animated?
Maybe 2 at this point. I'm still
Yeah.
debating, like, how many in the honorable mentions are
Oh yeah.
gonna make it. I don't wanna cut any of them
Yeah.
out.
No, I've got so collectively in my 10, which would include my honorable mentions, I've got 3 that are non-animated.
Okay.
Um, but the animated ones, they're just so like the actors take it to a new level where they literally like create this iconography. Like it's just like
Yeah,
iconic,
yeah.
the because of the what they put into it. Does that make sense? Like it's a small percentage, I feel like. And to your point, I wish they would get recognized, the ones that really give their all to these performances, because they don't have to do that. I mean, let's be honest. They're not quote unquote in front of the camera. It's just their voice. But you
Right,
can tell the ones that do.
you can just sit down at the chair, read your lines, call it a day, like, add a little bit of enthusiasm and this part or that part, but
Right.
really, you don't have to do anything if you don't want to. You're still gonna get paid for your voice being on
Exactly.
there.
Exactly. So it's commendable, at least on my list. And I'm assuming on yours as well, that the dedication that these actors put into this one, that frankly they didn't really need to, especially if they're big names, if you will.
Mhm.
But they did, I feel like. So I'm excited to get into it and see what we got here. So we're doing our top five voice acting performances in film. Emma is here and she's going to get us started. So, what is your number five voice performance and why?
Number 5, I picked Amy Poehler as Joy from Inside
Good one.
Out.
Good
Yes,
one.
so I remember when I first watched Inside Out, I mean, I was emotionally destroyed,
Oh
as
God.
many other people were, but I was also happy. I was, confused about the sequence of events that were going on, and Amy Poehler was joy. She was leading us through this journey. She herself went through quite the emotional journey as her little emotion, as it related to, her human's life and all the changes in her life, and I just
Right.
thought, I mean, she could have, as you said, she could have just stayed her happy Amy Poehler way that we all associate her with. She definitely is playing a happy character here, but she's recognizing all of the changes and all the different emotions that are okay to go through a child's life and through their head. And I just felt that it
Right.
was emotional. I felt that it was taking it to a whole new level. And honestly, that entire cast is pretty stellar.
Oh
But
yeah.
I think
Good.
Amy Poehler leads the charge quite well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And she is such a layered character that you wouldn't think because you would think it would be a one note, quote unquote, joy, just kind of this overbearing, kind of annoying, joyous character that's always happy. But what's cool about that is because the young child's going through her journey. Riley, I think
Mhm.
is her name in the movie. Riley's going through
Yes.
her journey, but Joy is too. And by the end of the movie, she understands the importance of sadness
Mhm.
and how sadness really ends up kind of being the hero of the story in the end, that we all have to have those other emotions that might not seem as desirable to the naked eye, but they're as important as something like happiness or joy. So,
Mhm.
Amy Poehler really, like the Bing Bong scene.
Oh,
I mean, for
don't even
I mean,
don't even mention that to me
I
right
mean,
now.
if you played that for me right now, I would literally cry. Like it's like just so, and Amy Poehler in that scene sounds wrecked. Like her character really sounds devastated and is living through what we're watching on screen. So I agree with you. It's a great pick. I mean, Pixar just has a knack for great voice casting and also just pulling out the emotions of kids and adults, because I mean they really do pull your heartstrings, and Inside Out is a perfect example. So great pick to get us started. Now I've got two in my top five that are not animated.
Mhm. Okay.
I'm gonna start with number five. This is the only one that is, I mean, it's a recent film. It came out in 2013, but I didn't know this actress voiced this when I saw it. And when I found out after, I can just remember being like, oh my God, I can't believe I didn't even realize that. And then like I wanted to watch it again so I could like hear her, because I'm such a huge fan of hers. But it's Scarlett Johansson from Her, the Spike
That is
Jones
a
film.
very, very good pick.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, AI right now, especially, is in the conversation big time. But in the last like 10 years or so, I mean, Siri, Alexa, I got to be quiet saying that. They might come on in my devices here.
Don't
Uh,
start.
exactly. But I mean, they're just taking over our lives, and we are so attached to them, whether we want to admit it or not, at least if we're into technology and reliant on technology. And Spike Jones is one of those filmmakers that really takes like a quirky premise and just makes it so relatable.
Mhm.
And he did that really well with Her. I felt like Joaquin Phoenix is a powerhouse, but Scarlett Johansson is one of my favorite actresses, and the reason this is on here is because I can just remember being like, man, I love her so much. I'm such a huge fan of hers. I watched that movie for 2 hours and I didn't know that was her. Like I didn't know that was her voice, and that just, I don't know, just flabbergasted me at the time. So
I'm
there's something to
surprised
be
you
said for
didn't
that
pick
a
up
little bit.
on it. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
surprised
I
you
just
couldn't pick up
didn't.
on it.
Yeah.
She
I mean, I can now. Knowing
Yes.
it, I'm like, "Oh, well, that's her." But at the time, I don't know, I just was thinking Siri or, like, AI, and it just didn't register with me, which really kind of impressed me and surprised me a little bit. What do you think about this one?
I like this pick. Definitely I mean, back then, it caused such a huge conversation around AI, but also obviously the subject matter within the film itself. I've actually been really, been wanting to revisit this movie because it has been such a long time since I've seen it. I wanna go back into it kinda with not necessarily, well, I guess with fresh eyes, it's almost been a decade since this movie has
Yeah.
come out, if not a decade. And yeah, I just remember every word she said was kind of intoxicating. I mean, Scarlett
Hmm.
Johansson has this really distinct, sultry, inviting
Hmm.
voice that maybe sometimes the accent work isn't always great, as we may have seen in
Sure.
Jojo Rabbit. But
Sure. Yeah.
I always really enjoy her presence in movies, and I think that this is definitely a top pick. I need more of her voicing. Can I change actually the Siri on my phone to be Scarlett
I
Johansson's
know.
voice?
I know. I wonder why that's not a thing yet. I
So
guess
rude.
2013. I mean, Siri was around back then, I think, right? I don't know. I'm not very
I
good
I
with like
think so.
memory, I should say. But I think so. I don't know. That'd be something to look into. I'm assuming there should be a Scarlett Johansson voiceover of some kind, but I don't know. She should make some money doing that for sure. So that's my number
I
5. Go
I
ahead.
know she's strapped for cash anyway.
Right.
She needs
She
all
needs
the extra money.
Yeah, she needs a side gig, I'm sure.
We all
All
do
right,
at the
so
end of the day.
yeah, we all do, yeah. So what's your number 4, Emma? It's your turn.
So number 4 is Josh Gad as Olaf in Frozen.
Mm, mhm.
I this little snowman, I mean, what he did in my life during those 2 movies when they came out. I love him both in Frozen and Frozen 2 just because, he's such a happy presence on screen. He is ridiculous, rambunctious, makes you want to, like, cuddle him and hug him, even though he will probably give you a very, very cold hug back. But, I mean,
Mhm.
Josh Gad just, like, he utilizes this voice that is just so childish, and you would think that it is coming from, like, an actual child, but no, it's this grown man who has children, he's married and all of this. I don't know, I'm just a big fan of Olaf as a character, and
Yeah.
he's never really done me wrong, and I just felt that Josh Gad was the guy to do the job, so he makes the movies for me, in all honesty. I mean, as does Kristen Bell and Idina Menzel and pretty much everybody else.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's stacked cast for sure, stacked voice cast. Uh, he's an iconic sidekick, Olaf,
He is, he
like,
is.
he's just really, I mean, and I don't think that would have happened without the voice performance, to your point. I mean, it's so energetic and childlike. It's just easy to connect to, obviously for children,
Mhm.
but also like parents love it because it gives the kids something to connect to in the movie, regardless of
Yeah.
what the subject matter, depending on the age. But
Yeah,
Olaf is like universal, regardless of how old you are. A 2-year-old versus us. You know what I mean? So
right.
I think it's a great pick. He's an iconic sidekick. Actually, the episode I did with Nicole was top 5 movie sidekicks, and I feel like she had Olaf.
Good,
Nicole,
as
if
she
you're listening to
should.
this and you didn't, I'm sorry, but I think you did. I know it came up at some point or another. So,
And not to
so
also
good pick.
mention I mean, he sings in both of the movies too, and I mean, that's a whole 'nother skill set that you have to utilize, so I feel like he really, really shined in a number of ways here.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So good pick. Olaf from the Frozen films is your number 4, and
Yes.
what a segue, because this character that I'm about to mention was also on my movie sidekicks episode, which I just
Ooh,
remembered when I said that to you. But also, it's an iconic sidekick, in my opinion.
okay.
It was a little bit before Frozen. It came out in 2001, and there's been an entire series of films. They're still making them. They're doing spin-offs, but it's Donkey from Shrek, voiced by Eddie Murphy.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. I talked about this on my Sidekicks episode a couple months ago, but much like Josh Gad did with Olaf, Eddie Murphy just put his comedy and his humor and the childlike just approach that he had to this character, but still with a little bit of edge to it, because the Shrek films in the early 2000s had this eensy bit of edge to them with some of the jokes that kids might not get, but they still laugh because of the delivery that Eddie Murphy was giving, or the one or two bad words that he might throw in there, which made it kind of edgy and hip and cool at the time. But Eddie Murphy, in my opinion, is one of the greatest comics alive, and definitely one of the greatest like stand-up comics of all time, and the stuff
Mhm.
that he's done in his career, and then to be able to shift it to this family friendly, like I said, iconic sidekick. And it's just, I mean, anytime I see an actual donkey, like I think of Shrek, just because of what Eddie Murphy did with this animal that's been around for hundreds of years. I mean, it's just crazy
Yeah.
that he put his spin on it, and just he's just donkey now to me. What do you think about this movie? Are you a fan of the Shrek films?
I'm obsessed with the Shrek films. They might honestly be my favorite, like, animated films in general, and actually, Eddie Murphy was my number 2 pick, so you and I are
Nice.
we are on the same wavelength.
All right.
I'm gonna switch it. He'll still remain number 2, but I'm gonna give, like, another number 2 once we get to that point in our
Ooh, okay.
podcast. Yeah. But, I mean, Donkey is just an iconic character who will never not make me laugh. Pretty much
Mhm.
all of the Shrek characters could belong on this list, but Donkey stands
Yeah.
on his own. I mean, loyal friend, hilarious companion, a little clueless at times,
Yeah.
and Eddie Murphy just delivers it all perfectly in whatever iteration he has to.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's kinda, like, annoying too, but, like, you still want him there, like, when he's
I
not
know.
there, you miss him. Yeah,
The him, like,
and
doing the, clacking sound as they're, like, pulling up to Far, Far Away in Shrek
right,
2.
right. Yeah. What is your favorite Shrek film in the franchise?
Shrek 2.
Yeah, no, it's Shrek 2, that's absolutely the answer.
That's the correct answer.
I wanted to make sure. Yes, it is Shrek 2, that's correct. But, honestly, I like them all. I mean, they
Yeah.
all have bad parts and good parts and whatever, but, I mean,
Mhm.
Shrek 2, in my opinion, is, like, the masterpiece of the series, so,
I'm I
but
am
here you say
I'm
that.
mad it didn't win Best Picture that year. I mean, that's
I
how
know.
great it is.
Yeah, I mean, it should have been in the race, it's crazy. So there we go. So a couple of iconic sidekicks for our number fours. We are up to our number threes now. Emma, what do you got?
So I went with Ellen DeGeneres as Dory
Good one.
from Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
Um, you I mean, what's one of the lines that you remember from that film? It's "Just keep swimming." You hear her voice over and over in your head. I mean, she kind of like Donkey is that companion who you're a little annoyed with her. She's not very helpful, but you want her there. And I mean, I don't know how great Finding Dory was. It was great because we got to hear Ellen's voice again and her retrieval of this character, but
Mhm.
the place where it's at is Finding Nemo. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just it's whenever I revisit Finding Nemo, I'm just always looking forward to when Merlin and her reconnect and find each other in the ocean and set off on this adventure. And so I gotta give it up to Ellen, despite some problems in recent years with Ellen
Yeah, I
DeGeneres.
know. I know. I know. But in talking about just Dory, though, I mean, it's weird because it's like this little fish, and
I
it's
know.
but she really makes you connect to that character. I mean, you really do. Like you feel for her. Like you said, you're kind of annoyed by her at times,
Mhm.
but it's a touching performance. It honestly is. And in Finding Dory, it's good too, but it's kind of the same beats that we got in the original. There's
Yeah,
nothing like
pretty
super
much.
new introduced. But if you love
Mhm,
that character, which I do as well, I
mhm,
mirror what you're saying. But great pick, Ellen DeGeneres. And that's one that she has a very distinguishable voice too, but I feel like it
mhm.
just fit. It didn't matter; it just fit perfectly. Like
It did.
unlike my ScarJo pick, like with this one, like I knew it was Ellen immediately, but like I didn't care. It just made sense. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
guess that's part of the casting, the beauty of casting. But it went well with Dory, and that's your number three. That's a good pick. That's a good
Mhm.
pick.
Thank you, thank you.
Well, we will stay Disney Pixar here. A- And you mentioned, I think it was with your Inside Out pick that you said, really any of the main cast could have been in your top five, and that's kind of how
Mhm.
I feel about this franchise also. And I didn't really know which way I was going to go because there's some side characters that are just like so memorable for me. But I mean, come on, it's Hollywood's dad, Tom Hanks, in the Toy Story
Mm.
franchise.
Oh, yeah.
as
Oh, yeah.
Sheriff Woody. I mean, just the evolution of this character who is a toy, literally a toy. And in the first film, he's trying to have his dominance over Buzz Lightyear and he wants to be in charge of, Andy's room. And he kind of we're all are resistant to change at points. And that's what kind of Woody's going through. But
Mhm.
as the series goes on and Andy grows and these toys kind of mature, within their mind and different things are thrown at them like Tom, and this is kind of what I was talking about when Emma in the beginning too, is that I mean Tom Hanks is one of the biggest movie stars in the history of the world. So
Mhm.
he doesn't have to, I mean he can literally just read from the page and they'll give him $1 million. I mean he doesn't have to do anything, but
Mhm.
he continues to turn in these emotional layered like graduated performances from the previous film all the way throughout this series. And I was one of the people that when they announced Toy Story 4, 3 or 4 years ago, whenever, I was like, why are we doing this? Toy Story is a perfect trilogy.
Yeah.
Like we're good, dog. Like we don't need to do this. And then you hear characters like what Hanks did again in Toy Story 4 and kind of the different connection with, is he going to choose to be with his group or is he going to go with, his love and like,
Mhm.
but I don't know. You get what I'm saying? It's just so cool how it was written that way, yes, but I feel like Hanks really had to sell it to us, and he did
Yeah.
so with his voice performance in these movies. What do you
And
think of this pick?
you were definitely not alone in terms of people's feelings about Toy Story 4. But he is he's Woody, he's always gonna get us on board. This is a fabulous pick because and I'm sure he shows up on so many of, like, the top 10 best vocal acting performances of all
Yeah,
time, and there's a reason for it. You believe that he is the sheriff in town who is going through all of these different struggles in each movie and having to grap with the fact that maybe he's being replaced or being separated from his family and from Andy and all of that. So it's I don't know, they I'm sure when we're younger, we viewed these films, it's just like, oh, they're fun animated movies, they're just for us kids,
right,
but they're so
right.
profound and deep as you grow older and you really understand and can look at them through the adult lens and connect to that child self from a few
Yep.
years ago and just see how different the impact is. And I definitely feel that with the Toy Story movies. And as you said, this is certainly one that, like, so many different people could have gotten a pick
Yeah,
on.
yeah, and I stand by the fact that Toy Story 3 is one of the greatest animated films ever. I don't know if that's your favorite one in the series or not. I should have asked you first, I guess, but
I do really love Toy Story 3.
yeah, I mean the part where they're all think they're going down together in the inferno or whatever,
I
and they're
know,
holding
I
hands
know.
and they think that's it. And it's just the depth of that story for these little inanimate objects, and how we've connected to them for so many years. And
Mhm,
performances like Hanks, really, like I said before, kind of sell that to us and make us feel like we're part of the proceedings. So
definitely.
for that reason, I admire it. It's one of my favorites, and I love Tom Hanks too. So, we
He's a
did
good guy.
this. Yeah, he's all right. He's a good dude, I guess.
A guy.
We did um we did our Tom Hanks movies on the show.
Oh,
God,
cool.
probably 4 or 5 years ago. But I feel like I had Toy Story 3 on my list actually of Tom Hanks's whole
Good.
catalog. I think. Yeah.
You're staying true
So
to yourself.
yeah, 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 yeah. So I love that series. I love that character, Woody. And we are up to our runner ups, Emma. What do you got at number two over there?
So number 2, I mentioned that it was Eddie Murphy, but I'm also gonna give another
Oh
number
yeah.
2. This is
Mhm.
one of my 2 non-animated performances, and I am going with Andy Serkis as Smeagol/Gollum from the Lord of the Rings movies. It's funny, I just watched all 3 Lord of the Rings movies for the first time, at the end of 2023. You know,
Hmm.
daunting run times, just wanting to find the right mindset to be in to watch them just because it's a huge epic that you're about to follow for like
Yeah.
9, 10 hours. And you want to be
Right.
sure that you're in the right mind zone for them. And I was really enjoying it, really, really digging the vibes. but Andy Serkis's performance as this interesting creature and is certainly one of the highlights of this movie. I did
Yeah.
kind of have to wonder, am I okay mentioning this one? But I mean, he doesn't look like Gollum in real life.
No, right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's more that's definitely more of the animated CGI portion of this, where we're definitely getting his voice. But I mean, he was just amazing in all of these movies and certainly gave me a look at Andy Serkis that I never anticipated from him, a crazy turn from him. But I mean, he's one of our bad guys in these movies, and bad guys are
Mhm.
so fun to watch and to follow. And he certainly goes through a bit of changes with his character, whether he's the good guy and wants to help Frodo, or if he wants to turn against him and Sam. And so
Yeah.
I just I had to pick him for this. It's certainly a memorable performance.
Without a doubt, and we're talking about the voice part of it. I mean, the
Mhm.
that voice is, like, eerie, creepy,
Yes. Yes.
uh, without a doubt memorable. It's a little unnerving,
Yes.
and you don't know, like, as you're watching the movie, you don't know, like, what's his end game? Like, should we trust him? Is he going to double cross them? Is he,
Yeah.
like you said, is he a villain? Is he just misunderstood? Like, you don't.
Mhm.
And I feel like a lot of that is because of obviously Circus's performance all around, but the voice for sure.
Mhm.
You mentioned it too, so I'll just let you know. I just watched these movies for the first time last year as well.
Oh, okay. So we're both in the same
We,
boat.
yeah, it was a huge blind spot for me. I had seen like bits and pieces of the first one, like when it
Mhm.
first came out, but I never watched it like all the way through. So I went through and did a binge for my Patreon. One of my patrons pitched it to me, and I said, "Yeah, let's watch them together." So we did it, and I loved them. I mean, Two Towers is my favorite of the three, but
Oh, okay.
like you said, if you're not like, okay, I'm sitting down
Yeah.
to watch a 3-hour fantasy film, it's not going to go well for you. You got to
No.
really be in the right mindset. You're right about that. But
I will say that the first one is my favorite and Two Towers is my least favorite.
oh wow, interesting. Yeah, I think the battle at Helm's Deep and that whole sequence did it for me.
That
So
makes sense.
I don't know, it was just something super super epic about that. It's just but yeah, I mean, I love them all. So I'm not gonna argue with your pick either. So great choice.
Thank
Gollum is
you.
your number two.
Yes.
My number two is now this guy, the actor, I mean, could literally read me the back of a ketchup bottle, and it would probably be able to make this list. The guy has an iconic voice. Everything he voices is like just so memorable, and you just remember that character. There's two that I was battling with which one to pick. So I decided to go with the one that's been the most impactful in my life and that I've connected to a little bit more. So that's going to be James Earl Jones for Darth Vader from the Star
Mm.
Wars films. Are you a Star Wars fan or no?
I have
It's okay.
definitely I've seen all of the movies. I'm a Harry Potter girl. That's where my
That's fine.
allegiances lie in terms of the fantasy, but I did really enjoy all of the Star Wars movies.
Well, Vader, he's one of the most, if not the most, iconic movie villains ever. And I'm talking about really from the original trilogy, although the lore continues.
Yes,
We see it
it does.
pop up here and there. I loved when he showed up in Rogue One, which was essentially a prequel to
Yeah.
A New Hope. But James Earl Jones is like really deep, sinister, like take on this character, but also with just a little hint of like submissiveness to where like you're able to kind of like, and then you see in the prequels, which give or take some of those movies, but you see kind of the origin of Anakin and where that kind of comes from, and the lost love and the heartbreak and the things that he's gone through in his life that kind of turned him bad, if you will.
Yeah.
And he wasn't just inherently that way.
Mhm.
Um, Makes you connect to it a little bit more. But I just feel like James Earl Jones, I mean, as Vader is like literally put it in a museum. I mean, it's like one of the best. it's just attached to that lore forever. And I'm gonna tell you right now, Star Wars is gonna go on forever. I mean, they'll never stop doing Star
I
Wars
know.
related content. I mean, it'll be literally until the end of the world like explodes. It'll be going on. So,
We'll have, like,
um,
15 different, like, mini series going on at the same time when we're
yeah, sure.
85.
Yeah, it'll be unstoppable, you know. So, but James Earl Jones is one of those like old school kind of like classic things to take away from the franchise that I feel like is unrivaled, especially if you're talking about like live action voiceover work. So
Totally.
that's my number two. I think his best work in those films is probably in The Empire Strikes Back when we get the
Mm.
reveal,
Mhm.
you know, of him being Luke's father, and um, it's basically like a soap opera. Empire Strikes Back, like an intergalactic soap opera. But yeah, James Earl Jones from Star Wars is my number two. So there you go. Emma, you got
That's
a great list going over there. We haven't had any crossover yet, which is, well, I mean, a
we did it
donkey,
with
I guess.
yes, we had Donkey.
Yeah,
James Earl Jones, as Darth Vader made it as my honorable mention on my
nice,
honorable mention list.
nice.
You know, I'm not as big of a Star Wars fan as you. However, I have to recognize that iconic voice. I mean, that is like the voice that every generation will recognize, and it's because of the eeriness, the power behind every single word, and I mean, you're just trembling as you hear him breathing. So, I mean, that is
Yeah,
a sign of a true scary guy, and he nailed it. So, I'm glad that this definitely made it up on both of our lists.
yeah, that's great. I agree. So when we nailed this category down a few weeks ago, Emma, I knew immediately what my number one was. But before we get there, I want to hear what your number one is. Has it been mentioned yet tonight or no?
It has not been mentioned tonight so
Okay, all
far.
right, go for it.
I'm eagerly awaiting to hear your number one. I remember you texting me, I know exactly who's going to get this. And I was like, ooh.
Right away. Right away.
My number one is a film that just came out last year. A
Ooh.
very iconic voice behind a cute little creature. It is Jenny Slate voicing Marcel the Shell in Marcel the
Hey.
Shell with Shoes On. I mean,
Good one.
I love hearing that voice coming out of that little shell. I mean,
That was so
Mar
good.
Marcel is so wholesome, and of course, Jenny Slate voices him as this wholesome, precious little being because that's exactly what he is.
Mhm.
And there's just so much humor in her dry deliveries sometimes, and just these little phrases that she utters are just so perfect and just capture whatever creature this little alien thing is from.
Yeah, right, right.
But I mean, I've rewatched Marcel the Shell a few times, and I just find something new to appreciate from her performance. And not only that, I mean, she like has been with this character for over 10 years. I mean,
I
since the
know.
beginning, just kind of developed this voice for this thing. And there have been so many YouTube shorts, there's been like children's books, there's been this animated film, and I adore everything every that has to deal with this character.
Me too. Did you watch any of the shorts and stuff prior to the movie coming out?
I did, yeah, it was interesting to
Yeah.
see how a lot of the ideas from then definitely made it into the movie itself, but then it expanded upon this longer, story of him losing his family and then trying to reconnect with them.
Well, I'm one of those people that I just don't know what was wrong with me, but I missed it prior to the movie. Like
Oh,
I
okay.
one of my favorite movies of the year last year, and I actually
Yeah.
saw it for the first time in the theater, like, I don't know, maybe like 2 or 3 weeks after my grandmother had passed, who I was really, really close
Mm.
to. So
Mhm.
this movie freaking like I was a blubbering mess when I saw this movie the first time. And I've seen it a couple times since. I watched it at home with my son who's 9, and he loved it as well. It was I
Aw.
think I'm speaking for him, but I think it was his favorite animated movie besides maybe Pinocchio last year. Um,
Okay. You're raising a
but it
young little movie guy over there, I
yeah,
see.
no, yeah, he's a film buff for sure, so he
I
loves
love that.
those types. But what I was gonna say is I just didn't even I don't know why, because I love Jenny Slate, and like
Mhm.
I said, I love the movie. I just didn't know anything about the YouTube kind of phenomena prior to the movie. So I went
Mhm.
back and watched them, a lot of them after seeing the movie, and it was really cool to kind of do it that way too.
Yeah,
But yeah, that was my introduction to this characters when the movie came out, and I was
that's
just kind of like
awesome.
kind of like you said, I was just in love immediately. I mean, it was so charming, and it was cool how they were able to connect us to this a literal shell, and you like, why am I feeling emotions for this? Like, you know what I'm
I
saying? But you like, you just,
know.
it was just so cool, and a lot of that has to do with Jenny Slate for sure. So I think it's a great pick. Well,
I'm so
this
excited.
is now, regular listeners of my show, if they haven't already guessed and they hear it, they're going to be like, "Oh yeah, of course." But it is Robin Williams as the genie from Aladdin, another
Very
Disney
solid
film,
pick.
another Disney. I mean, I've talked about this movie a lot of times on this show before. It's come up on a few other lists that I've done, but Robin Williams has this like frantic, just ball of energy. And I've seen behind the scenes stuff of him in the booth doing this work for this movie.
Yeah, he's, like, going
And
all over the place.
yeah, just so zany. And it's, probably 70 or 80% improvised. And like he's doing like impressions and like making fun of people. I mean, it's just like all this, it's like a stand up act that, I'm sure the editors had a nightmare piecing together to come up with the performance that we get on screen. But it's just, I just feel so good every time I watch it. It's my number two Robin Williams performance next to Good Will Hunting of his entire catalog, and it's a voice performance. I just feel like he brought so much emphatic energy to this story and to this movie that I mean, could you imagine this movie without I mean, what would this, it would just be like inherently just so different than
It
not
would
having
be
his energy.
it would be the Will Smith version in the live action remake, whatever that
Smith
was.
first. That's true. Yeah. That's a good point. Actually, we have seen that. You're right. Um, Real quick, I'll tell the story because I feel like it's cute and you might like it. I've told it a couple times on the show before, but another reason why this movie is like I can't get it out of my mind and I never will is because my first job ever when I was like 16 years old was working at an Eckerd's drugstore. Are you familiar with that? It's kind of like Walgreens, but
Right.
you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I
So
do.
I was there. I was like a cashier, stock boy, whatever. And it was right when the TVs with the VCRs built in them had come out.
Mhm.
Are you familiar with that? And it had like,
I'm not that young. I do remember
I mean,
having a little VCR player.
I feel like I'm like super old, so I feel like I have to like make sure everybody knows what I'm talking about. Sorry.
No, I remember. I actually have the first 3 Harry Potters on VHS. That tells
Nice.
you that I was back
I love it.
then.
I love it. I love it. So anyway, we were carrying those, and we only had one VHS tape that we sold, and it was Aladdin. So it just played on a loop at the store I worked at, and we had it sitting right there on the counter next to where I was, and my girlfriend worked there at the time, and we literally watched Aladdin like 3 or 4 times a day for like 2 weeks because it was like the only movie we had, and
Yeah.
it just played over and over again. And seeing kids in the line, like asking their parents to buy it from because it was so like they were just so drawn to it, and just their eyes would just light up at it. I mean, we live in a different era now in the 2020s, but back then it was just like super magical to just like hear those songs. And just like I said before, just Robin Williams's energy was just infectious, and it was just something about it, and it still gets me to this day. Like I still love watching it. I have such a good time with it when I watch it every time. I watch it at least like once a year, and I love it.
Disney needs to write you a fat check for all the sales that you managed to do for them that time.
I know, man. I tell you. Oh man. Well, there we go. So that was our top five voice acting performances in film. Emma, I got to tell you, you surprised me a little bit there with Marcel because I love that movie,
I'm
but
glad.
I guess recency bias. I just didn't see it coming. So,
Right. No,
but
I mean,
I love it.
I kinda had to think a little bit, what definitely has kinda stuck with me and who has delivered this great vocal
Yeah,
performance that I just love going back to, and I mean, it's my girl Jenny. She did a
I love it.
fabulous job.
I love it. My son, I mentioned him earlier. He's 9. He's gonna get me a little Marcel the shell. I'm gonna put it up here.
Oh, I
My
love
my back.
that.
My background somewhere. He was like looking for it on Amazon. I'm like, but then we found it on A24's like website. So
Yeah.
he's like, I'm gonna get it for your Father's Day. You put it up in your thing there. So I was
Best
like,
son
that's cute.
ever.
He's the best. So there we go, guys. When we come back, we're gonna take a quick promo break, Emma. When we come back, we'll give our honorable mentions, and then we'll shout out the fans online too, and just see what they had to say. So everybody, sit tight. We will be right back. Emma, you doing okay over there?
I'm doing just fine. How are you?
All right. I'm good. I'm good. I just didn't know if you need to take a break or anything.
No, no, I'm okay.
All right. I'll come back in here, and what I'll do, Emma, is I'll just have you wrap up your top five, just like list them,
Cool.
and then I'll do this. I'll do the same, and then we'll just give our honorable mentions. Okay.
Cool.
Welcome back, guys. As I said pre-break, Emma is here, first time guest of the show, and we just discussed our favorite voice acting performances in film. With the exception of Mr. Eddie Murphy as Donkey, we didn't have any crossover in our top five, which is great. So a very eclectic list of these voice actors. And we're going to get into our honorable mentions. But before we do that, Emma, just remind everybody what your top five was again.
Yes, so number one slot went to Jenny Slate for Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. Number two, I ended up doing it as a tie between Eddie Murphy as Donkey in the Shrek movies and Andy Serkis as Smeagol Gollum in the Lord of the Rings movies. Number three went to Ellen DeGeneres for Dory in Finding Nemo. Number four was Josh Gad as Olaf in Frozen. And then number five was Amy Poehler as Joy from Inside Out.
Great list, really good list. My number five would have been Scarlett Johansson from Her. My number four was Donkey from Shrek. My number three was Woody from Toy Story, voiced by Tom Hanks. My number two was the iconic Darth Vader from the Star Wars films. And my number one was the genie from Aladdin, voiced by Robin Williams. I want to make sure everybody knows I mean that one. Although I guess it wasn't a voice performance for Will Smith. It was whatever other kind of performance that was.
Something.
It was,
It
yeah,
was a fever dream.
it was something weird. Yeah, for sure. All right. So honorable mentions. I got five here, and I know you have some over there as well. So if you want to
Yes.
just list the ones that didn't quite crack your top five, Emma, what do you got?
Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier, but James Earl Jones was on my honorable mentions list for Darth Vader. A lot
Mhm.
of the same things that you love about him, I do too. I have Josh Gad's Frozen co-star Kristen Bell in my honorable
Yeah.
mentions as Princess Anna, who just like him has to sing her way through this movie and have a boatload of fun, being funny and quirky, and she does an awesome job.
Yeah.
Um, Jeremy Irons as Scar from The Lion King.
Ding,
I
ding,
mean,
ding. There you go.
that is a terrifying voice performance. I mean, as a
Mhm.
child, literally scarred me. And then even
Mhm.
as an adult, when you're going back, you're just like, oh my God, he's so scary. He has the perfect
Yeah.
voice for this.
Yeah. He does so sinister in that.
And then these two, they have a bit of a crossover in the movies that they're in, but I can't not mention both of them. Mike Myers as Shrek,
Sure. Yeah.
And then Antonio Banderas as Puss in Boots. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah. You
just
got
love
to.
as you if you couldn't tell, I love the Shrek movies and
Oh
I
yeah.
love the voices that these people all put into their performances.
Without a doubt. Cameron Diaz too. Really. I mean,
Cameron
they're all
Diaz
great.
too. Yes.
Well, did you know Chris Farley was supposed to do Shrek? Did you hear that? You knew that?
I think I did hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that too a few years ago, and I was like, "Oh my," because I love Chris Farley. I mean,
Yeah.
I was just a fanboy of his in the '90s, and but at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, that's Mike Myers now to me, you know?
And also Mike Myers, I heard, delivered the Shrek voice in a whole different way than how we hear it
Ah,
today. And it just didn't work out. And so, he just didn't feel like as enamored
hmm,
with it. And then he just kind of started going at it in this strange Irish Scottish accent. Maybe I just made that fact up entirely, but I feel like I have read that.
well, it sounds right. I don't know. It sounds. I believe you, so that's good. So you mentioned a couple of mine. My number six would have been Jeremy Irons from The Lion
Okay.
King. I love how Scar is just kind of like so evil, but kind of like it's not even a big deal.
He's like,
Like a
whatever.
very like calming, kind of like British, almost like a Bond villain, as Scar.
Yes. Yes.
in that movie, and like you said, extremely terrifying as a young kid. And what he ends up doing to Mufasa is just like it'll scar you.
Alright. Never
And
never
then
get over that one.
yeah, I know, man. And it's funny too because I know it mirrors the Shakespeare. Was it Hamlet that it mirrors? I think, but like the story.
Right.
But Jeremy Irons kind of plays it like Shakespearean, which I don't know if he did that on purpose, but it's just kind of like a very eerie take on that character. And it's very scary. The younger you are, the more scared you are by it, most likely.
Yes.
So I love uh probably to an unhealthy level Bradley Cooper. So I'm gonna do Rocket from the
That's
Guardians of
a
the
fun
Galaxy film.
pick. Yeah, that's a good
That's my
one.
guy right there. That's my guy. Maybe the only thing he hasn't been nominated for an Oscar for, but he should be.
Honestly, yes.
But that's my number 7. My You mentioned my number 8 would have been Antonio Banderas's Puss in Boots.
Love it.
Really came into that character. Kind of started as somewhat of a comic relief, kind of like joke thing, and then kind of turned into just its own thing. And The Last Wish was one of my favorite movies last year, and he's really made that character his own kind of like feline version of Zorro, which is really cool. And his
It's
voice is
adorable.
yeah. There's also a couple in this movie that I could have picked from the Wreck-It Ralph films, but I'm going to go with Sarah
Ooh,
Silverman as
I love
Vanellope.
her. Yes, I
I do,
love her as Penelope in the
I
movie.
do too. I do too. I love her how she kind of like brings her voice down to that childlike tone, and
Yeah.
she's very snarky and has a lot of like digs, and she just really kind of brings her own, like, it's obviously not as edgy as her real life comedy, but she kind of brings a
Yes.
little bit to it.
I have to
But
say Wreck-It Ralph 2 emotionally destroyed me. It came out right after I moved to California, and I had to separate
mm,
from my best friend, and
ooh,
it's very similar to what Ralph and Penelope go
yeah,
through in the movie with, letting that other person, live their life and do their own thing. So I connected so much to Penelope in that movie. So I'm really happy you brought that up because
yeah,
I'm afraid to revisit that movie in all honesty because I was just sobbing in the theater, like
yeah.
only adult in the theater, full on sobbing.
Yeah, no, that could be tough. I could see that hitting you at the
Yeah,
right time there. Yeah, but
yeah.
I love Vanellope, so that's my pick. And then my number 10 would have been Dakota Fanning's voiceover work in Coraline as
Oh,
Coraline.
yes, I love
Uh,
Coraline.
yeah, me too. Stop motion masterpiece from Henry Selick, and you know Dakota was pretty young when she made that movie, and I feel
Mhm.
like I don't know, it was perfect. Like I feel like she was the age of Coraline in the movie, so she was able to not really have to like stretch a lot in terms of like what she was comfortable with. And you just got the sense that it was this little girl that was scared in these situations, or
Yeah.
depressed in other ones, and it was like actually happening, and I
Mhm.
thought she did a really good job there. So that would be my number 10, and I love that movie, so it was hard for me to not put it on the list. So there we go. All right, so
I'm a big fan of both of your lists. You had a lot of awesome picks tonight.
as did you, and we had a little bit of crossover there, but that's okay. It's
That's all
good to
right.
have like-minded. So how we end every episode, Emma, is we head over to Facebook and we see what the fans had to say in the old suggestion box. Give me a second. I'm going to pull that up. I'm
Sure.
going to make my editor take this out in post because I didn't have it ready to go, but that's okay. Uh, Let's see. And I got to be honest, I don't think I distinguished TV, so I'll just shout out some peeps. All right. So over in the suggestion box, Emma, I just said, what are some of the best voice acting performances of all time? All right. Let's see what the fans had to say over there. Jared, patron and friend of the show, said Mark Hamill as the Joker, Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime, and Robin Williams as the Genie. Those are some good ones. We did not include TV tonight, but I'm still going to shout out my patrons. What do you think of Mark Hamill as the Joker? That's pretty iconic, right?
That's pretty iconic. Yeah, that's a very good
Yeah.
good pick. I'm sure if we expanded this to both TV and film or even just a TV episode, I'm
Yeah.
sure he would have landed on either one of our lists.
Yeah, without a doubt. Josh Ragland, patron and friend of the show, says Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime is perfection. That's
Mm.
the 1980s Transformers television program. Again, we didn't include that, but that is definitely one of the all-time greats in terms of like voiceover for animation.
And I have to admit that I am not familiar with that take and that turn, so maybe that's a little homework for me to catch up.
Are you Do you know the Optimus Prime voice from like the Transformers movies and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as Peter Cullen. Yeah, he's basically Optimus Prime. It's basically his whole career. He's been Optimus
Oh,
Prime.
cool. Okay,
So yeah,
great.
yeah, he kind of revisited that voice for the movies too.
Gotcha, that makes sense.
John Campbell says J.K. Simmons as Omni Man, Mark Hamill as the Joker, and Kevin Conroy as Batman, which is from the Mask of the Phantasm and some animated Batman series.
Okay.
Let's see. Brett from Dissect That Film, also a patron of the show, says Conroy from Batman, Mark Hamill as the Joker, Robin Williams as Genie, Jeremy Irons as Scar, Vincent Price as Ratigan from The Great Mouse Detective. That's a good one. And the entire cast of Toy Story. Yeah, I was going to ask you, but is Woody your favorite Toy Story voice performance? Because there's a lot.
There are definitely a lot. I do enjoy Woody, I do also enjoy my girl Barbie. Shout out to Greta Gerwig.
What?
I love my
I
little
can't wait
Barbie
for that.
gal. I can't wait.
Oh my god, I don't know. I'm gonna have to take like a week off of work when Barbie comes out and go
Just
see
need
it
to
like every day.
recuperate.
Yeah. Let's see. Tony Dobish says he always loved Clooney in The Fantastic Mr. Fox. That's a good one.
Oh, that is a really good one. George Clooney has a very soothing voice that I could just listen to for days on end. Even when he's
Yeah.
kind of a little frantic as he was in like Burn After Reading, I still just
Right.
I love a good George Clooney presence in any movie. And Fantastic Mr. Fox, he was the voice.
Yeah. I mean, he's just a cool guy. You know,
Yeah,
he's just so cool.
he's a cool guy.
Also, also he is the now talking to you. This is not going to mean much, but he's also the highest level celebrity, I guess you would say, that I've met. So that's kind of cool. Like,
Oh, that
yeah.
does mean much to me.
Well, I was gonna say you're rubbing shoulders with him out there, so I don't know.
No,
But
in what
he
context did you get to meet him in?
so it's really cool. He was are you familiar with the film Leatherheads with John Krasinski?
Oh, yeah,
Came
I've
out in
heard
the
of it.
early
Mhm.
2000s, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I heard of it.
Well, that was filmed here in North Carolina and where I
Oh.
live. And a friend of mine worked at the restaurant where him and some people that were on the crew or whatever went to get drinks after the restaurant closed.
Mhm.
And they like let him in and they served him or whatever. And he texted me and I went down there and in a roundabout way, Clooney ended up buying me a drink. So I tell people that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that.
But I mean,
Hey, you
I just told him I was a big fan. I did this stupid, like, oh, I'm a big fan. It was really cool to meet you. And like, man, he was talking to his friends and stuff. So
yeah,
I didn't bother him too much, but I still met him and he paid for me and my friends' drinks. So I thought that was pretty cool.
he's an awesome guy, and
Yeah.
hopefully he was nice even though, he
Oh, he
was with
was.
his friends. Okay, good. I
Yeah, he
needed that.
definitely
I
was.
needed to know that George Clooney was nice.
No, yeah, he was super cool. Yeah. Let's see if I got some others here that I could. I just want to shout out the patrons and see if they have anything that we did not mention. Chris Yaney says Kiefer Sutherland as Braun in The Land Before Time. Jodie Benson as Ariel in Little Mermaid.
Oh.
And Dom DeLuise as the tiger in An American Tale and Fievel Goes West. Some good throwbacks there. Mhm. Got quite a few. Robin Williams as the genie.
You
My
wrote
friend
them
Lauren
all in.
Scott says, yeah. My friend Lauren Scott also says The Rock in Moana, which, by the way, they just announced a remake for that today. I'm sure you saw it. I'm like,
I
what?
did see that.
I feel
I
like
was
that
like,
just came out.
it did just come out.
I actually
I'm
tweeted about that on my break today. I was like the only tweet I sent out today. I was like, didn't this just come out? Why are we remaking this, guys?
I know.
But anyway, it's still a great pick. The Rock is as great as Maui in Moana. Let's see what else we got here. Oh, how about Donna Murphy as Mother Gothel in Tangled?
Oh my goodness, yes. How could we forget to mention
Oof,
her?
yeah,
It's
that's
so
another.
fun. I just think that it's really fun to play the villain in any movie, and certainly in, like, animated films, you just really get to go at it. I also have to say, I'm blanking on the actress's name, but the woman who plays the fairy godmother, of course, in Shrek, I mean, she is so iconic
Yeah.
too.
Who is that? Is that Julie Andrews? That's not Julie Andrews, is it?
That's no, Julie Andrews plays the queen. I cannot remember who
That's
this
right.
woman is.
Oh, crap. All right. I know who you're talking about, though. That was also really good.
Yes.
But here we are with our Shrek fandom again, but that's fine. Let's see. Amanda Inman says Vin Diesel as Groot. I don't know. I mean, yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean,
He
it's
just
definitely
says,
memorable.
"I am Groot," but okay.
Yeah. But
Uh,
very convincingly.
Fairy godmother was played by Jennifer Saunders.
Oh, that's not who I was thinking it was. Okay.
No.
Well, there you go. It is a great performance. And we will end on Jason, who's a patron of the show. He says Robin Williams is the genie, Tom Hanks as Woody, and Billy Crystal as Mike Wazowski from Monsters Inc.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah,
Those are
John
really good
Goodman's good from
picks.
that too. Yeah.
Yes,
So there you
absolutely.
go. All right, so I'm gonna try here, Emma. So Emma Sasic, is that right?
Nice job, nice job.
Did I do good? I didn't do good. I did okay.
No, you did
All
totally
right.
great.
Thank you so much for being here. It was a delight. You're the best. I had such a blast chatting voice performances with you. I hope you had a good time as well. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you and look you up online out there?
Well, first, I just wanna say thank you again for reaching out and inviting me to the show. I really had a nice time. This was a lovely topic to talk about, and I'm excited to come back, hopefully, whenever you'd like to have me again. Um,
Absolutely.
You guys can find me on Twitter. I'm at Emma_Sasic. On Letterbox and Instagram at Ema Sasic. And then you can find my work on Next Best Picture and The Desert Sun, where I cover a lot of entertainment news. And then with Next Best Picture, I'm doing a lot of film criticism.
That's awesome. And like I said, at the very least, get ready. Pencil it in. I'm gonna do a whole women's thing next March.
We're ready.
It's gonna be all women related. I got to figure that out because I think that would be a really cool thing to do. And I kind of been spacing it out here and there, but it'd be cool to have focus on that for sure. So I'd love for you to be a part of that. But nonetheless, it was great to have you this week, and it was a blast talking to you. So thanks so much for being here again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You guys, thanks for listening as well. And I will be back next week with another top five. Until then, everybody take care. All right, Emma, just sit tight while I end the broadcast here. And like I said, it'll just upload your